All right, good evening, everyone. I think we're live. We're going to be starting very shortly. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight on the My Left Eye live stream. Back here with our regular slot on Sunday at 7:30. You're very welcome here. Feel free to drop us a message in the chat just to say hello. And as we go through clips and articles, please do let us know your thoughts. Let's get connected tonight and share some ideas and opinions on tonight's news stories. There's been, as always, a lot happening. As we said on last week's live stream, a long time in politics, and of course this week has been no different. We've got a few things on the agenda. I'm going to go through those in a little while. Just while you start to fill up the room in the chat, we're going to nip over to Keith's house. He's hosting a little fondue party, so for the next couple of minutes we're just going to dive in there and see what Keith's up to. He's got a few interesting guests as well. So welcome everyone. If you're just joining us, feel free to say hello in the chat. We are My Left Eye, and the channel is all about left-wing politics for socialists. We keep our eye on the right wing media, right-wing politicians, and hold them to account. If you're a new viewer, thanks for joining us tonight. If you're coming back, you're very welcome back. Hope you've had a good week, by the way. There's certainly been a few events in terms of politics. I'm just finishing getting set up here and they'll be good to go. Just want to give a quick shout out actually to the agitator who's put this clip together. And then we're going to get into some news stories and articles. Got quite a few bits to get through. But yeah, let us know how you're doing tonight. How's your week been? Okay, so we're just about to get started. Get yourself comfortable, get yourself a drink, get yourself some snacks. You've earned it. It's been a long week indeed. And happy Socialist Sunday to everyone who's listening tonight as well. Let us know how you're doing in the chat, wherever you're joining us from. Just a reminder as well, please do subscribe, hit the thumbs up button on the stream. That really helps us out with the algorithm. Also, if you can check out some of our other content after you've watched the stream, we'd really appreciate that as well. We're going to be bringing up some of the subjects that we've talked about in some of those videos tonight. We're going to be going through 30p Lee Anderson's suspension. I'm sure you've all heard about that. He's been suspended from the Tory party for Islamophobic comments. We're going to be diving into that and also seeing the reaction to that as well. As always, we're going to be talking about the latest situation in Gaza, both from a humanitarian and a political perspective. We're also going to be looking at, touching briefly on the upcoming Rochdale by-election, which is coming up this Thursday. That's the one that's been all over the news recently. And again, we've done some videos about that, if you'd like to check those out, if you've not done so already. Obviously, there's a lot of attention on that one at the moment. It looks as though George Galloway is actually looking like he could potentially take over the seat. There are, of course, other candidates, but the main furore within the press has been over Labour's, well, former candidate, as it were, Azhar Ali, who has been suspended by the party. If he does manage to retain the seat for Labour, then he'll be standing as an independent in Parliament, as we all know. So we're going to dive into the clips. It's going to get started, but before we get on to those subjects I was just talking about, I just want to briefly touch on something that might have been overlooked because, as I said, it's been a massive news week, a lot going on, not just with Gaza and the Anderson suspension. There's been lots of other news stories as well, including Julian Assange's trial. He's trying to appeal against being extradited to America. Assange is obviously a journalist who's been imprisoned. He did have to seek refuge in various embassies for a while, but now he's been arrested and he faces extradition to the United States of America. I'm sure you all know Julian Assange is accused of, well, it's difficult to morally put it into perspective. He's accused of telling the truth, is the actual truth behind it, because we don't let the truth get left behind here on My Left Eye. He was exposing American war crimes during the Iraq War. He's obviously the founder of WikiLeaks, and the Americans are trying to get their hands on him, as it were. So that story has been in the news recently. Obviously, he's had a lot of support, not from just the public, but also from politicians, or the right kind of politicians. And we're going to be hearing from a couple of them now. I'm sure that listeners and viewers will be familiar that Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana have been very outspoken on this. And if you really care about a free press, if you care about the truth being told, journalists shouldn't be persecuted just for telling the truth, and I'm sure you can all agree with that. So we're going to be hearing from Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, who attended protests where Julian was on trial at the Royal Courts of Justice earlier this week. And I've actually had the pleasure of meeting Julian Assange's wife, Stella, a couple of times and had conversations with her. And it really is obviously awful for Julian and his friends and family. But in highlighting this case in particular, we just want to re-emphasise how much, we deserve a free press, how much we should have a free press. So let's see, first of all, what Jeremy Corbyn had to say while he was down there. Sorry, Keith, the party's just on hold for a bit. We're going to Corbyn, which I'm sure Keith will be delighted with that. Yeah, Keith out, Corbyn in. I'm sure that's the sentiment ringing through a lot of people's minds.
Well, I raised this with Boris Johnson when I was leader of the opposition. He gave a very interesting answer. He said that the judicial arrangements for extradition between Britain and the United States were unbalanced. He didn't exactly expand on what he meant by unbalanced, but he seemed to me to be suggesting he thought the US had too much power in this. It would be a political decision, and I would not be deporting a journalist who's made life uncomfortable, yes, for the US military and many other militaries and many governments and many corporations. But that's what journalists do. That's what your job is. Your job is.
Yeah, sorry, just wanted to cut in to point out, you'll remember in the run-up to the 2017 and 2019 elections, Corbyn was doorstepped by the press, mostly by the right-wing press, of course. In fact, he was pretty much doorstepped from the first day that he became leader of the Labour Party, as I'm sure that a lot of our viewers and listeners will remember. But even that having happened to Jeremy Corbyn doesn't make him have a vitriolic hatred for journalists in general. Obviously, I won't go into any specific corporations, but the type of people who doorstepped Corbyn are obviously not the kind of people who we want to see, who we want to be talking about, but he still believes in a free press, of course, you know, despite those occasions where his personal life was kind of impacted by it. Yeah.
To hold me, as elected politician, to account, and everybody else. We've got to protect journalists. That makes us a stronger and safer democracy. Belmarsh is a terrible place. It is a maximum security prison. He has not been convicted. He's there as a remand prisoner, and the conditions are pretty bad. And anyone that's been 5 years in those conditions is going to be affected by it.
Yeah, and just before we move on through the clip, I should have pointed out before I went into it, Julian Assange couldn't actually attend the Royal Courts of Justice himself because he's too ill. He's been apparently he's really malnourished. As Corbyn was saying, the conditions in Belmarsh are not great, and obviously Assange is being victimised. There are, shall we say, higher forces in power here when it comes to military, when it comes to media, government and whatnot. Well, I guess this does concern the military because Assange obviously exposed war crimes carried out by the US in the Iraq War at the turn of the millennium. So, yeah, I guess that does come into it as well.
The court doesn't have the final say on it. There are two other important aspects of this. One is that extradition can only be approved from any country by a political decision made by the Interior Minister, or in the case of Britain, the Home Secretary. There is also the possibility of applying for the case to be heard at the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, and the European Court of Human Rights is absolutely part of the British judicial system, so it may well end up that the European Court of Human Rights will make its view known. I would not allow his extradition. Julian Assange has suffered enough. We need him to be out. We need him to be able to fully recover. And we need what is his genius at discovery back at work.
Yeah, we do. So I'm just going to take that plug away. Yeah, he's bang on there in what he's saying. And yeah, this clip does come from Sky News. Should just point out. I hear they can be a bit picky about people using the clips. We'll see if anything comes of that one. Sorry, I couldn't find any other footage, so apologies about. I know. Well, while we're on the subject of the press, you know, right-wing press, Murdoch and all that. Let's not get carried away. The topic in hand is Julian Assange. So, yeah, Jeremy mentioned the European Court of Human Rights. Obviously, the Tories are trying to get us out of the ECHR, and Sunak has pointed out that court for human rights is stopping the Tories from achieving their goals. So that just, you know, goes to show what the Tories have got planned. If you think things are bad enough at the moment, then just wait. You know, if we unfortunately did leave the ECHR, imagine what they might try and get away with then. So it's obviously very important, like Corbyn said, the ECHR might end up having a say in this, and I'm sure that all of you share the sentiment that it's a complete injustice what's happening to Assange at the moment. So yeah, do let us know your thoughts about that in the chat as well. Thanks a lot for joining us on the live stream tonight. If you've just dropped in, leave us a message in the chat. If you're watching this on a replay, please do add a comment. We do try and reply to as many comments as possible. I'm your host tonight for the evening. Call me Lefty, and it'd be great to hear from you in the chat and get some conversation going about all of the events of the last week or so. And yeah, just a quick update on the channel before we move over to Zara Sultana, who obviously wanted to have her say on the Julian Assange case, and as always, it was brilliantly put, as you're going to see, from the Coventry South MP, who is still in Labour. Obviously, Corbyn's standing as an independent in Islington North at the next general election, and it's highly expected that he'll win by a huge majority anyway. Just wanted to update you on the updates with the channel. So we're going to be having the membership features landing hopefully soon. We put an application in for that. We're delighted to have gotten over 800 subscribers since we were last with you on the live stream, so thanks a lot. If you've recently subscribed, or whether you subscribed a while ago, thanks a lot as well. Thanks for sharing our content as well, and thanks for your recent comments. It's been some great comments on some of the videos recently, and fortunately I've not been getting trolled nearly as much as I anticipated when I set up the channel, which is good, although there have been 1 or 2 attempts. But yeah, we'll keep you posted on that one. So we're going to have a lot of perks for the memberships when they come through. And yeah, just wanted to thank you all again for joining us here on the stream. So let's go to Zara now. Just a sec.
Well, I raised this with Boris.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Zara Sultana. I am the MP for Coventry South, and I bring solidarity to Julian Assange, Stella, and everyone who believes in the power of journalism. Revealing war crimes is not a crime. It is journalism. It is what we say when we talk about speaking truth to power. But we know Julian is being targeted for exposing US war crimes, the crimes of empire and abuses of state power, from torture in Guantanamo Bay to the killings of civilians in Iraq and Afghanistan, a region ravaged by what the US and the UK and its allies have done. The public, we all of us had a right to know about those appalling crimes, yet Julian has been locked in Belmarsh since 2019 and faces the rest of his life in a US prison for bringing that damning information to light. And this isn't just an attack on Julian, like so many others have said already. This is an attack on the very essence of journalism, on the free press, and what it means to hold the powerful to account. So everyone who cares about free speech should care about Julian, should care about this very important case, and should be calling for an end to this prosecution and the persecution of Julian, for the charges to be dropped and for Julian to be free. So thank you and solidarity, and let's keep fighting.
Wonderful stuff as always from Zara Sultana there. I'm sure you'll agree. And yeah, just couldn't agree more. If it could happen to Julian Assange, it could happen to any journalist. As long as they're speaking the truth, you know, we should have a free press. I'm obviously dead against misinformation and propaganda, of course. But if you are speaking the truth, you should have the freedom to do so. And that is why we need journalists like Julian Assange, who of course founded WikiLeaks. And it would be a shame if America get their way on this one. I'm not sure exactly what legislation it is off the top of my head. Do apologise. Should have made a note of that before I came on the stream. But it could be some bullshit legislation in America that's under the Patriot Act. I'm not sure. Obviously, that spurious legislation came in after the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan way back in the early 2000s, and a lot of people have been charged under that with you know, terrorist offences, etc., even though it's in very nefarious circumstances. So if this is part of that, then that just goes to show how spurious that legislation is. If you do know exactly which legislation it is, please do let us know in the chat. It'd be great to hear from you tonight, as well as your thoughts and comments on all of the subjects. So that's all on the Assange case. We'll try and keep you up to speed with that on the channel. Unfortunately, it's been an ongoing thing for years, but now this is all coming to a head. As I said, Julian has been from pillar to post. He's had to seek refuge in embassies such as the Ecuadorian embassy, but he was arrested there, and that's incredible scenes to see a journalist being dragged out of an embassy just for telling the truth. So that's all on that for now. We're going to move on to the Lee Anderson story. 30p Lee. Sure you all know him. Former Labour MP, moved over to the Tory party. I'm not sure if that says more about the Labour Party than it does the Tories, but let us know what you think about that. Obviously, there's not a lot between them. We've seen it happening the other way as well. Tories moving over to Labour. If Labour seems like a comfortable place for a Tory, then it really does make you beg the question what state it's in, and if it really is, as it says on the card, a Democratic Socialist Party. But yeah, 30p Lee has been suspended for Islamophobic comments made on GB News. Obviously, a lot of Tory MPs are finding themselves with cushy jobs on GB News now, and in a lot of cases they're actually getting paid more by GBBs than they are for an MP's salary, which is no pittance. I'll tell you so. You have to ask yourself where the main interests lie. Obviously, the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg has his own show on there as well. I think just the other week, Rishi Sunak did this kind of exclusive Q&A thing with GB News. So Ofcom really do need to get off their arses and come down on this, because we shouldn't have MPs, especially from a sitting government, having their own TV channels. That's as far down the rabbit hole of propaganda as it gets, really. Directly channeling through a so-called news program. Obviously, we know that it's not really a proper news broadcaster just because it's got the word news in the name. Far from it. So he's been mouthing off, obviously trying to impress right-wing viewers of GBBs, and he's accused Sadiq Khan of being won over by what he calls Islamists, which he's sort of inferring has some sort of link to terrorism, as this horrible. Obviously, it's not true. It's a racist, a horrible racist trope, and to actually say that on television is just absolutely abhorrent. However, he wasn't suspended for the Islamophobia. He was actually suspended for refusing to apologise, and that makes it another matter entirely. When you think about it, when you look at the Tory party, there is a lot of Islamophobia within the Tory party, within its members of Parliament, as well as within its members. We're going to hear from such ridiculously minded people shortly, just before we go through the article and hear Sadiq Khan's response to 30p Lee's comments. So let's just nip over to the article now, actually. So there you see. There he is. The former Tory Deputy Chairman Lee Anderson suspended from the party after refusing to apologise for comments aimed at Sadiq Khan. I'm not going to go through the full article. I'm just going to pick out a few bits. We're going to see Sadiq Khan's response as well. FSM is the dog. How are you doing tonight? Thanks a lot for your comment in the chat. So you think the Tories will bring 30p Lee back at the next tight vote? Possibly. We'll see what's going to happen with this. If he has to step down, if he gets sacked, obviously that would force a by-election, which could get quite interesting, as many of them often do. So yeah, he said, I'm just reading a few bits out from the article now. So yeah, he's lost the whip. It says just over an hour after Mr. Khan's criticism, a spokesperson for the Tory party's chief whip, Simon Hart, said following his refusal to apologise for comments made yesterday, the chief whip has suspended the Conservative whip from Lee Anderson. So again, just to re-emphasise, he wasn't suspended for making Islamophobic comments. Obviously, all that the Tories about at the moment is trying to stir up xenophobia and racism, with this the stop the boats policy, which is ridiculous. Let's not forget, the Tories don't have a Brexit to sell anymore. At the 2019 election, they had just 2 or 3 things that they were running on. Obviously, Brexit, and look how that turned out. HS2, and look how that turned out. Obviously, recently it was announced that the HS2 line isn't going to be coming to the north. It's going to be stopping at Birmingham. Manchester was expecting it, and obviously that's been thrown under the bus, or the train in this case. Yeah. And number 3, I guess, was just we are not Corbyn, and obviously they had a large part in stirring up a lot of misinformation about that. But this time around, it's all 100% xenophobia and racism with this stop the boats thing. Also the phony culture war, the drummed up war on woke, as it were, which again is just to appease the kind of people who might find themselves sitting down and watching 30p Lee's attempts at broadcasts from a GB News studio. And I've seen some of the stuff that he's done, not directly, but just through clips on social media. And yeah, it's an absolute disaster. But obviously, the ratings for GB News aren't that great, of course, and deservedly so. So, what did Anderson have to say at first? Posting his reaction to losing the whip on social media, Anderson said, quote, "Following a call with the Chief Whip, I understand the difficult position that I have put both he and the Prime Minister in with regard to my comments. I fully accept that they had no option but to suspend the whip in these circumstances. However, I will continue to support the government's efforts to call out extremism in all its forms, be that anti-Semitism or Islamophobia." He didn't use either of those terms in what he accused Sadiq Khan of. He used the term Islamists, you can see right there. So let's hear what Sadiq Khan had to say.
Look, these comments from a senior Conservative are Islamophobic, are anti-Muslim and are racist. We've seen over the last 2 days confirmation that over the last few months there's been an increase in anti-Muslim cases by more than 330%. These comments pour fuel on the fire of anti-Muslim hatred. And I'm afraid the deafening silence from Rishi Sunak and from the cabinet is them condoning this racism. And I'm afraid it confirms to many people across the country that there's a hierarchy when it comes to racism. I think it's really important to call out anti-Semitism. It's really important to call out misogyny. It's really important to call out homophobia. But surely it must also be important to call out anti-Muslim hatred. And I tell you this, my concern is there'll be people across the country, people who are Muslim or look like Muslims, who'll be really concerned about entering into politics because they know if these are the sorts of comments that are said against me by a senior Conservative, what chance do they have? Look,
Yeah, he's absolutely right. There is no hierarchy where it comes to racism. Obviously, every form of racism is as bad as one another. And we call out anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, wherever we see it, and all other forms of racism, as mentioned there, and quite rightly so. So Lee Anderson's obviously completely out of order with these comments. However, that doesn't stop people from phoning in radio shows who have, managed to let this garbage from GB News seep into their brains, or what brains they may or not have. And we're going to be hearing from one of those examples from a recent LBC appearance very shortly. Of course, this all comes off the back of what was supposed to be the vote on a motion put forward by the SNP on a ceasefire in Gaza. That turned out to be an absolute calamity in the House of Commons, I'm sure that you know. We've also done a couple of videos about that, as well as Stephen Flynn and others calling for the Speaker of the House, Lindsay Hoyle, to resign. And yeah, we'll go through that farce just briefly before we get through the rest of this Anderson issue. So the caller on the LBC show really was out of his depth, and I do have to actually admire the way that the host reacted and responded to him. So we'll take a look at that shortly. Yeah, just before we go on to that, just want to point out the Muslim Council of Britain have said that it welcomes Mr. Anderson's suspensions, but claims it's only taken place after widespread disgust. And this is the thing, if you don't pull people up, especially broadcasters, if you don't pull people up within the media for outright racism, then it's just going to go on, and it's going to get worse. It doesn't matter whether it's against a specific religion, whether it's anti-black, anti-brown, xenophobic, anti-Semitic or Islamophobic. There is no hierarchy. It's an evil that needs rooting out of society. I'm sure you'll all agree. Let us know your thoughts about this in the chat as well. FSM as the dog says, has he forgotten Ford used that quote about Labour? Is that referring to the Ford report, the infamous Ford report after the anti-Semitism scandal? So yeah, sorry, I'm not sure exactly which quote you're talking about there. Let us know in the chat though, and if you're just joining us, you're very welcome to the stream as well. Welcome to the My Left Eye live stream. We're going to be here with you every Sunday evening. Thanks a lot for joining us. Get yourself a couple of snacks, get yourself comfortable, and come and join in the conversation as well. Thanks a lot if you're a returning viewer as well, and if this is your first time, then you're very welcome. We don't have any moderators in the chat at the moment, so I trust that you'll be cordial and polite as you've all been so far since we started doing the live stream a few weeks ago. Yeah, cheers for that, FSM. It's the dog. The hierarchy of racism, yeah, I see what you get into now. And that's it, because it just sort of distracts from the issue of racism in general as well. It shouldn't, what is worse or what is happening the most or the least, and there's been plenty of arguments about this on social media, and yeah, people like David Baddiel, for example, trying to claim that anti-Semitism gets left on the back burner because people are more concerned with whatever it be, Islamophobia, anti-black, anti-brown, and just even starting those conversations takes you away from the real issue, which is the racism itself. And I'm sure that you can all agree that that's got to stop. That's what's got to go. Everybody has got to call racism out in its entirety, and it needs to be rooted out of society, 100%. Okay, we'll get into a few more clips now. Just wanted to point out, as well, as I mentioned earlier, we're waiting for the membership program to come through. We have put an application in. It does take a bit of time to come through, but in the meantime, there are other ways that you can help to support the channel. Please do share us across your social media if you've checked out some of our other content as well. Also, you can buy us a coffee on our Buy Us a Coffee page. There's a link to that in the description of this stream. I think it's also in the channel description page on our YouTube as well. We're exclusive to YouTube at the moment. We're hopefully going to be branching out to streaming across multiple platforms at the same time, such as Twitch as well. But if you would like to consider helping to support the channel by buying us a coffee, please do so. You can check out the page in the description. Thanks a lot. All right, on to the next clip.
Good morning, everyone.
So this is the LBC caller who I mentioned just earlier. I think he said he was calling from Sheffield. It was Mike or Mark or something. But the way that the host responds to this is absolutely fantastic. So he's going along with Anderson's position on this. Like I said, unfortunately, the likes of GB News, Talk TV, all of these, utter, half-wit shite hawk broadcasters do manage to seep into people's brains, unfortunately. But this is a classic example of how you stand up to this sort of thing. And when they throw around these wild conspiracy theories, such as that the mayor of London is under the influence of Islamic terrorists, basically, that's what Lee Anderson's saying there. It's just absolutely goddamn ridiculous. So this is one example of how that should be responded to.
What is the evidence that London is in the grip of Islamists? What is the evidence for your assertion?
Well, the fact that the police aren't enforcing the law. I mean,
give me an example.
I will give you a perfect example.
Sorry, just one sec. This is Sangeeta Miska, by the way. Forgot to name the host. So this is Sangeeta Miska, and how she responds to this guy is brilliant. So let's see what he's got to say.
From the river to the sea on the Big Ben, that is a clear breach of the law.
No, it's not.
That is illegal. It is illegal. And actually, the police, the Metropolitan's Police has
no. There's been
an
arrest, and potentially there will be a trial. But
it's illegal to display anything on there.
Okay, give me another example, because that's not an example of Islamism taking over London. Is the Prime Minister of the country an Islamist? Extremist?
Prime Minister is not, no.
No. Is the Home Secretary?
The Home Secretary is not, no.
Is the Defence Secretary?
No.
Is the head of the Civil Service?
No.
Do you believe that Sadiq Khan is an Islamist extremist? And if so, why?
No, I don't believe he's an Islamist extremist.
Right. Do you believe that Sadiq Khan, quote, has been taken control of by Islamist extremists?
Control is not the right word.
I'm going to read the quote to you.
He had to have a good think about that there, didn't he? There was a good few seconds pause there while he thought about his words. And I know exactly how she feels. You can see some of the reactions. She's, sighing. These are real head in your hands kind of moments here when you hear this kind of stuff. But you do get that on calling shows, I guess. And he won't be the first or the last on LBC to come out with an opinion as crazy as this.
I'll read the quote to you. This is from Lee Anderson. I do believe they, and he means Islamists, have got control of Khan and control of London. So we've established that I think you will admit that the people running the country and are not Islamist extremists, and certainly people in important positions are not. So let's zero down, shall we, on that bit of the conversation. Lee Anderson saying, I do believe that they, meaning Islamists, have got control of Khan and control of London. So give me the evidence as to why you think that is not problematic as a statement.
Sadiq Khan, in my opinion, will not enforce the law because he knows there is an election coming up for himself. He will not be as strict as someone else, because obviously, there is an awful lot of Muslims in London. He will want the Muslims to vote for him in the upcoming London election.
You do know, don't you, that it's the Metropolitan Police that polices London. Are you aware of that?
Well, he's the commissioner. Sadiq Khan's the commissioner.
Well, they are answerable to him. And who is the head of the Metropolitan Police?
Sir Mark Rowley.
Is Sir Mark Rowley an Islamist extremist, Mark? Since you seem to think
no,
he's
he's not, but he's answerable to Sadiq Khan.
Oh, I see. So you are suggesting, just so that I've understood this conspiracy theory correctly, that
Why is it a conspiracy theory? That's a
well,
fact.
because you haven't produced a single piece of evidence. We have now arrived at the point where you believe that Sadiq Khan is ordering Sir Mark Rowley to order police officers not to enforce laws.
Well, I think that's.
I think that's checkmate, actually. And yeah, well, what a time to pause it there. That's a real gotcha smile. You know, she's you know, head in the hands moments. Like I said, that's yeah, bit of a gotcha moment there. So it's just a little bit left, but it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. What a week it has been. Yeah, Martin Arnold, thanks for joining us in the chat. So much going on. We've still got to get into all this thing that happened over the SNP motion as well. And like FSM is the dog says, yeah, many horse and LBC thrive on this sort of engagement. And you'll see quite a few conversations like this. I'm sure people such as James O'Brien especially thrive upon it. That's not to say that I'm a massive James O'Brien fan. In fact, in many areas not. But when it came to Brexiteers and Trump fans and that kind of thing, it was kind of typical to see every day these kind of conversations happening where they'll talk to someone who's a little more than misinformed, shall we say, and they really do. Yeah, they really do put them straight.
Question that remains unanswered, but I certainly don't think that Sangeeta that we can say that's not happening. I don't think we can say that's definitely not happening.
So I'll make a thing up, and then it's not for me to prove that it's happening. It's for you to prove that it's not happening, because that's obviously how claims work. Don't know if whatever he's called from Sheffield has ever heard the term burden of proof. But when you're making any kind of accusation, then the burden of proof is on you, of course. So he's just come on here and completely banana skinned it, really, hasn't he? And it wasn't even that difficult. All that she had to ask, you know, he was basically saying that the country is controlled by Islamist extremists, and then just simply go through a list of the people who have the most influence within the country. So it was as simple as that. It was as simple as that. But unfortunately, these kind of prats will fall for it. And it's pretty tragic to see, really, when you think about it. Yeah, but the hosts thrive on this, and I guess they just need calling out. It's normally, you know, people who are in the know tend to be hesitant to call into these kind of shows. It's always the raging, you know, red-faced gammons that can't wait to, you know, call in and basically just regurgitate something that they've just read in the Tory graph or something like that directly onto a radio show. And that's just the cycle of misinformation that we've got in this country, I guess. Lest we forget, we've probably got the least trusted media or mainstream media in Europe. Not that GB News is mainstream by any chance, but that's where these comments came from originally. And there's not a lot of sense in anything that's said on GB News, if we're being perfectly honest with ourselves. But this is just the latest example. And just quickly before we move on to this Lindsay Hoyle farce, complete cock-up in Parliament, I just want to go back to the point about MPs being on TV, and really want to know your thoughts about that. I mean, are Ofcom ever going to do anything about this sort of thing, that a sitting MP, a sitting member of the government, can be given a slot on their own TV show when there are clear rules against that? The rules are very clear, you know, about what politicians can and can't do within media. For me, it's just pure propaganda, and I can't think of any other way to put it. But that's all it appears to be to me, you know. Utterly senseless. Utterly senseless. Right, so we'll leave that there for now. I think that's all there is on the clip. Hang on.
Oh, Mark and Sheffield, I can absolutely tell you 1,000% that is not happening.
Yeah, 1,000%. Right, sorry. Just getting over a reaction there. Yeah. Let's move on. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight on the My Left Eye live stream. Let us know how you're doing this weekend in the chat. We're going to move on to the farce in the House of Commons this week. Utterly, omnishambles. I think that recent word that was added to the Oxford English Dictionary has got to come into play here. It's been one thing after another. I'm sure you all know the ins and outs of what's happened, but we'll do a quick recap. Just want to pull up a picture. I can't take the credit for putting this one together, but one of my friends on social media got this together. So while I go through that, I'm just going to put that on in the background 1 sec. Just need to find that.
What is the evidence?
Just Stop Hoyle. It's a play on words, you see. It's very funny. Okay, so the SNP were due to have the motion voted on in Parliament. As we all know, it was calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. More importantly, it was also calling out Israel for inflicting a collective punishment on Palestinians. And that is very important for what happened next. Labour hijacked the entire thing during the debates. Lindsay Hoyle, Speaker of the House, actually buggered off, left his deputy to try and deal with things. Neither of them did a very good job. At the end of the day, nobody voted on the SNP motion, but the Labour amendment, which didn't include calling out Israel for inflicting collective punishment on Palestinians. That's a very pertinent point, as well as how soon the ceasefire should start and last, went through without a vote. It was a call of ayes or nays within the House, and they weren't even given an opportunity to say nay, which is appalling. It was a complete removal of parliamentary procedure. So at the end of all that, Hoyle came back and tried to make a mealy-mouthed apology, as we know. Stephen Flynn is calling for him to resign now. There have been over 50 signatures, I believe, in a vote of no confidence, which has been put forward, which is also unprecedented. There's so many unprecedented things happened. Everyone was calling him out for the lack of procedure. As I said in one of our videos that we did about it, you might even find yourself nodding along in agreement with Jacob Rees-Mogg and some of the Tories who were calling him out for the lack of procedure, which is also unbelievable as well. So in the aftermath, he's tried to make this apology, and then they've come out, they being Labour as well as Hoyle, the day after, and tried to claim it was over some kind of threats being made. But we also know that Starmer was in contact with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just before that decision to put the amendment through was made, and we're not sure exactly what kind of threats. It's been strongly alleged that there were threats made towards Hoyle from within Labour, i.e. that he wouldn't be supported after the next election when the position of Speaker is up for election. Again, that's been suggested as well. But then they changed the tune so quickly from Hoyle saying he made a mistake to trying to claim that there was some sort of threat. Again, they, whether it's a blue Tory or a red Tory, whatever kind of Tory, when things get serious these days, it always comes down to terrorism or bringing race baiting into it and treating race as a political football as well, which is utterly disgusting, of course. So, which is it? Either Hoyle made a mistake, or there were these threats, and they won't say where the threats came from, who they were made towards. And then, unbelievably, the day after, when Flynn was reiterating his calls for Hoyle to step down, Hoyle tried to say that he didn't want to have another terrorist attack on his hands. Now, where in the fucking hell has that come from, if you'll pardon my bloody French? He doesn't want to have another terrorist attack on his hands, is what he said. Whereas the day before, it was an honest mistake that he'd gone out of parliamentary procedure, despite warnings from the clerks. Let's remind ourselves. So, it's a whole mess. I think he's got to go. I think he's definitely got to go. Not just because of this. I don't think he's a particularly good speaker in the first place, anyway. And that Starmer can have an influence over him. The Speaker's supposed to be neutral in his position, despite being a member of the Labour Party. He's supposed to be neutral on everything. But this clearly shows influence coming from within Labour, i.e. Starmer, who had just spoken to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which he's even admitted to. Just one sec. Just need a quick sip of tea there. Okay, so we're going to go back to, I believe this interview is from the morning of the day of the vote. This is even before any of this complete and utter disaster took place. Just wanted to share with you, in case it had passed you by, a great clip from Barry Gardner, who's a Labour MP, and he was interviewed on the BBC asking which of which kind of motion he'd prefer, whether it be the SNP's or the amendment put through by Labour. And I just think it's a really good response. So if you've not seen this, this is Barry Gardner, and then we'll get into the kind of aftermath of this. And well, I've got a few predictions about what might happen, but I'll go into that after we've seen a couple more clips. So this is Barry Gardner, who's he's normally pretty good. He's probably on the better side of Labour. Actually, just while this clip's playing, I'm gonna just double check that he voted for the ceasefire motion last November in 2023, which obviously over 140 Labour MPs abstained on, and only 56 voted for on account of Starmer and the Whips. I'll just quickly check that out while you can hear what he had to say before this all turned into an absolute dumpster fire.
I'm not an international lawyer. I don't know whether this qualifies. What I do know is it's morally wrong.
Article 33 in the Geneva Convention.
Absolutely. But I don't know what constitutes the offence. So I'm not going to judge on that. What I am going to tell you is it's wrong. It's morally wrong what is going on there. And nobody can look at this situation, and none of your viewers can look at the situation night after night and think that we should not be demanding an end to this violence.
But let's be quite clear. Do you, as a Labour MP, believe...
Kirsty Walk, of course, couldn't let Barry get away with saying that we need to have a ceasefire immediately, quickly interrupting. She's, of the same ilk of the Fiona Bruces and whatnot on the BBC. There will always be apologists for whatever's going on. You know, some of these journalists, and fortunately we see that from Question Time as well as Kirsty Walk's show as well.
That Israel has the right to defend itself.
Of course it does. Everyone has the right to defend itself. And look, one of the things that...
Okay, all together now. You're not defending yourself if you're occupying another country. We've said it time and time again. Yeah, Martin Arnold, thanks a lot for your comment. Clearly, Hoyle was persuaded. I would say probably directly threatened in terms of career, not sort of physically or whatever, of course. But he was definitely had something put to him in terms of how long his career might last. Apparently, that's come from a couple of sources as well. So, Kirsty Walk there, of course, the old Israel's got the right to defend its self-line, but that, as we know, just doesn't wash. That's absolute horse mess.
Do you believe that Hamas should be left in place? An immediate ceasefire would mean that Hamas is left in place.
Well, you say that. Look, a ceasefire is an opportunity to negotiate. It's an opportunity to make sure that the hostages come home. It's an opportunity to stop the rockets going over into Israel, because it's the only way in which you get to a peaceful solution, because you don't do it by bombarding people, you do it by talking.
It's very refreshing, to see people actually talking sense. Let's just quickly go to the BBC page where you can check how people voted on the last ceasefire motion last November. They're just a quick reminder of the overall results there. Mostly Tories against 294. 125 for the motion, only 56 Labour MPs. And you can see amongst the 222 who did not vote, Labour had 141 MPs who abstained. So, Barry, how did you vote? Barry Gardner. He voted for it, of course. I was sure he was, I just had to reassure myself. Yeah, sorry about that. Bees Monk, hello. Thanks for joining us. You're very welcome here tonight. Thanks for joining us in the chat as well. FSM is the dog. Yeah, he was lent on. And there's some, the sort of shady backroom stuff that's going on, not just in this instance, in the whole issue of a ceasefire in Gaza. It's unbelievable. There are apparently a new round of negotiations going on. Obviously, there have been about 2 attempts to get Hamas and Israel to agree to a ceasefire. The last one, the last couple have both been rejected by Netanyahu, even though the terms included an exchange of hostages. They also included a 135-day truce. That was the latest proposal that was rejected. There are talks going on in Paris in a story that came out today, so we'll try and keep you up to speed with the latest on that. But obviously, all nations need to call for an immediate ceasefire and also recognise the collective punishment that's being put on Palestinians. The Labour amendment does not do that, and that's very important. And obviously, Keir Starmer can't have his Zionist friends. He's a full-on Zionist himself, in fact. He couldn't have that, and that's why there's been this absolute circus over trying to get his amendment through. It's worth pointing out as well that it was the Scottish National Party's opposition day. They're the ones who first put through the motion. If Labour was so concerned, or Keir Starmer specifically was so concerned over an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, he would have put through a motion already, but he hasn't. He's just hijacked the SNPs in a completely underhanded fashion, to put it mildly. As I said, Starmer was speaking to Benjamin Netanyahu directly before this, and that's not just a wild accusation. I've got the actual clip here where he told a journalist, I believe it was a Sky interview, he told the journalist that he'd spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu just before, and that's now been removed. It's quite interesting that clip's now been removed from the news website, so very telling that. This is what he said. It's very brief.
The proposition I put on the table in that amendment was crafted by me after I came back from the Munich Security Conference, having spoken to Secretary of State Blinken, having spoken to the Prime Minister of Qatar, having spoken to the President of Israel.
You what, Keith?
The proposition I put on the table in that amendment was crafted by me after I came back from the Munich Security Conference, having spoken to Secretary of State Blinken, having spoken to the Prime Minister of Qatar, having spoken to the President of Israel.
Yeah, that's what I thought he said. And just another shout out to the agitator who put that clip together. If you don't follow the agitator on Twitter, please do. It really does put together some really good stuff. And yeah, so credit where credit's due as well. So that's it. That's it there. It's in the bag. That's the clip that they don't want you to see. That Starmer had directly spoken to Benjamin Netanyahu before he said whatever he said to Lindsay Hoyle, and then the Labour amendment went through without a single person going into the lobbies to vote. There are also moves coming from the SNP now that they might be considering putting forward a new motion in light of what happened earlier on this week, so we'll keep you up to speed with that. If you want to know more details about all of that, as I said, we did do a couple of videos about that during the week, so please do watch some of our other content as well. Thanks a lot for joining us here tonight on the My Left Eye live stream. Too much alliteration there. The My Left Eye live stream. And yeah, thanks a lot for dropping us your comments as well. Also, just a quick reminder, if you've not done so, hit the thumbs up button on the stream, so that'll help us out with the algorithm. If you'd like to help support the channel in other ways, you can go to our Buy Me a Coffee page. Any support there, greatly appreciated. We're just waiting for our partnership applications to come through, and then we'll be able to do memberships with exclusive perks and all the rest of that, so that's going to be coming very shortly. But as I said earlier, in all this debacle, obviously the Tories have jumped all over it, and in a very rare occasion, you've even seen people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, as I said, stand up and say something actually very sensible in Parliament, something you might find yourself agreeing with, which is a very disturbing thought to have. However, that just goes to show how bad the situation is in its entirety. And another example of that is Therese Coffey, who was on a BBC show recently and just pointed out what everybody's thinking. It's the only occasion in my memory of any time Therese Coffey has said anything sensible. She's been obviously in several positions in her tenure as an MP. She's been the Environment Secretary. She was absolutely disastrous at that. She's been a lot of other things now. In fact, off the top of my head, I'm struggling to remember which position she went into the reshuffle just recently. So it's very difficult to keep up sometimes. But this is what she had to say.
So coming back to the main issue, I mean, what happened this week in Parliament? You know, frankly, Labour was in a hole politically about the motion. They had their own opposition days. They could have put forward their own motion at the time. But sadly, the Speaker gave them a ladder out of that hole. And his justification at the beginning of the debate was not about safety. And by the way, he knew that in order to get the SNP to have a vote with his device, going against the advice of the clerk of the House, that Conservative MPs would have been required to vote down the Labour
We'll talk to Labour's Lisa Nandy about what exactly happened that night in the Commons.
Well, I'm telling you what happened. I was there. I don't know.
Well, very. I don't know what the word is. You know, the way Cussenberg interrupted her there. Lisa Nandy, obviously not part of that debate. Cussenberg jumped all over that. It's like I said, it's very bizarre to see Therese Coffey sitting there and actually saying what happened, speaking not only the truth, but, you know, something that everyone can agree with. Oh, what a disturbing thought, but it's unprecedented, so not the time and date. And it doesn't matter what Lisa Nandy bloody thinks about it, because that's what happened. We're going to hear from Nandy shortly, but just wanted to point out the way that Kussenberg had to again come in and be the apologist, like we saw in the previous clip, the same way Fiona Bruce does also often on BBC Question Time, something which I'm not that much of a regular viewer of, but there's always a few clips of that going around. So yeah, let's just hear the rest of what Therese Coffey's got to say.
You're convinced there was sort of skullduggery and a plot afoot?
Well, I have to say, I think Labour leadership, Starmer and his chief whip, put a lot of pressure on the Speaker. You can tell that by the stalling tactics that went on in order to get Lindsay to go against the advice of his clerks and to put that there.
Okay,
now,
well, we'll come to that a bit later. We'll come to that.
Well, yeah, that's all true. But the thing that she is omitting, I should say, yeah, I wouldn't like to experience anything that she emits. Goodness no. But that's another topic. What she's getting onto there is obviously great. What she forgot to say was that obviously Starmer is an open Zionist. About 2/5, 40% of sitting Labour MPs are Zionists. We're going to be talking about Labour Friends of Israel shortly and Zionism, but that's what Coffey isn't calling out. But obviously that comes into play here with this, especially, you know, as Bella Williams has pointed out in the chat, Hoyle was given an offer he couldn't refuse, of course. You know, Don Starmeroni came in and made him an offer he couldn't refuse. So that's why we're in this mess. But Starmer has done that, obviously, in his position as an open Zionist. So thanks a lot for that comment, Bella Williams. You're very welcome to the stream and to the chat tonight. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to see an appearance from Rachel Reeves at a Labour Friends of Israel conference, and this is just a short clip. But what she says is very shocking. Not only is she, of course, going along with the anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism trope, which of course is not true. She also gives a disturbing sort of... She announces her dedication to Zionism in quite a shocking way, which you know, have to consider. I'll play the clip first and then let us know what you think about this. I think obviously it's only because it's at an LFI, Labour Friends of Israel meeting. I think that she's been so open. Obviously she's doing a bit of brown nosing, and a fair bit of it, as you'll see in this clip. However, this just, you know, it's mask off time when it comes to things like this. These are the things that they're not telling you. Well, they are with their actions, but things that they're normally not so open about. They're very comfortable with being with these kind of gatherings. So let's hear from Reeves. Obviously, we had her on the live stream last week when someone was confronting her while she was canvassing. In fact, she got in the car and ended up buggering off and left the rest of her canvassing team there to pick up the pieces in what was like a really embarrassing appearance gone wrong. So let's hear from Reeves. Yeah, sorry to subject you to a voice as well. Obviously, I know that's quite irritable to one or two people.
But I also know that many of you have concerns closer to home about the anti-Semitism, the anti-Zionism, and the anti-Israeli feeling that is allowed to flourish in some communities in Britain.
How about the anti-war feeling? How about the anti-genocide feeling, Rachel? Over 30,000 people have been killed, and over half of them are women and children, Rachel. Are you not going to mention that at all? It's unbelievable. And tragically, those statistics also are without the people who are currently trapped under the rubble, who haven't been counted yet. Who goodness knows how many people are going to have been killed by the time this comes to a conclusion, which we're hoping is obviously very soon. that the fighting does end and we do get a ceasefire. But what about those anti-genocide and anti-war sentiments, Rachel? Are you not going to mention those? No? Okay.
And so we stand alongside you here at home as well, and will ensure that the police do everything within their powers to hold responsible anybody who behaves in that way.
Yes, you heard that right. Labour are going to make the police try to stop anyone who is an anti-Zionist. Obviously, anti-Semitism, like we said earlier in the show, is a form of racism that should be completely eradicated. But anti-Zionism, which is a racist fascist trope in itself, which calls for collective punishment on a group of people, the people of Palestine, the 1.5 million people who've been forced into Rafah, into southern Gaza, and who are under bombardment and shelling and sniper fire day after day after day. Really? Really, Rachel? Is that what she's saying? That's unbelievable. And she's not in any kind of position to make such promises to anybody. Apologies, I don't know off the top of my head when or where this meeting was. It was pointed out by someone who I know on social media just earlier. I only saw this clip a few days ago, which is why I decided to include it in the live stream tonight. But that's appalling. That's appalling. And Rachel Reeves is appalling. She's just as bad as Starmer. We know that she's not going to be bringing investment into this country if Labour win the next election. She's going to go down the Tory austerity path. The quantitative easing, as it would. Do you remember that one? Quantitative easing. No one said that for a while. It's just austerity. People are being pilloried. Cuts, cuts, cuts. That's all you're going to get. They'll turn the pockets out and say that there's no money there. And they'll continue to try and convince you that Britain's economy runs the same way as, you know, your household credit card or whatever, which we know is absolute bollocks. But that's just me getting a little carried away about Rachel Reeves specifically, of course. She's completely wrong on this issue, on the issue of Gaza. But to say that they will get the police to act against anti-Zionists, that's ridiculous. This is getting scurrily dystopian at this stage. It's definitely arguable that if Labour do win the next election, then they'd be as bad, if not worse, than the Tories. They'll just have sort of switched round which of the donors are getting repaid, but the underlying policies will be near identical. So no confidence in Reeves whatsoever. But this ridiculous concept that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism is ridiculous as well. And we're going to even hear from a German citizen about that. Obviously, the World War II Holocaust comes into these kind of conversations very often, and it is very pertinent. And obviously that's the most famous example of anti-Semitism in recent history. That was obviously awful, but we don't want to see history repeating itself at all. But this participant in an audience at a conference came up with, you know, a really good point here, specifically about Germans and how Germans almost feel threatened that they can't speak up, can't speak out against Zionism because they feel that they'll be accused of anti-Semitism. So, yeah, let's hear what he's got to say.
Apparently, 61% of Germans do not agree with what's happening in Gaza, so the polls claimed. But many of those are not going to say it because they don't want to be called anti-Semitic. They want to believe that the correct response to the Holocaust is not to say it. And we have to convince them that actually the only response to the Holocaust is to say it, because if you are against genocide, then you are against all genocide. And the Nazi Holocaust was one genocide and this is another. And with all the differences between every genocide, we cannot say that we have learned from that and that we stand for some kind of motto of never again if we are accepting this. And Germany in particular committed 2 genocides in the 20th century, in Namibia and in the Holocaust. And now we see it not only defending politically the genocide in Gaza, but also saying that it will support Israel in court, that it will be an active legal defender of genocide, and of course the whole time it is arming Israel. Since last year, arms sales have increased tenfold to Israel. This is more than acceptance, this is complicity.
Absolutely it is complicity. And the UK are complicit as well for funding and arming Israel. It's no good pretending to send a little bit of aid to Gaza that we know won't get through because the convoys are still being attacked. We're providing the weapons for them to attack the convoys. That's how messed up this whole situation is. And this gentleman's absolutely correct. It is complicity when you look at the funding that's going into arming Israel. Tenfold in the example that this gentleman was giving. And that's scary. That's scary. We've seen the ICJ call out the situation for what it is. But still so much money. And we're talking about billions and billions of pounds or dollars, whichever currency you'd select, but it's on the rise. It's on the rise. We need to cut it out in its entirety. Israel won't be able to sustain this collective punishment for so long if they weren't as well funded and armed from foreign countries, including our own. And it's appalling. We all want to be on the right side of history. So, yeah, we're going to go through a couple more clips. I'm going to try and lighten the mood just briefly before we hear from Lisa Nandy. As I said, from that earlier BBC clip, we would be hearing what Lisa Nandy had to say. And again, it's just a pathetic example of what has spilled out of this debacle in the House of Commons this week.
Houses of Parliament can't be prevented from having debates because of pressure from anybody. That's a central part of democracy. And
well, tell that to Keith. Tell that to Keith, Lisa, because that is clearly what happened. Like we said, he was given an offer he couldn't refuse. He did appear to be quite emotional when he came out after that as well, which just goes to re-emphasise how obvious it is that something like that happened, you know. So, yeah, let's hear it, Nandy.
You know, there's been a lot of talk about MPs' security, and it's right that we focus on that because it...
No, Nandy, it's completely wrong that you focus on that because it's bollocks. It's bollocks. This isn't a terror situation. Are you talking about a terrorist threat? If so, then you're going to have to be very specific because that's a very strong accusation to make. If a terrorist threat was included in this, then you're going to have to tell us what threat was made and where it came from. You can't just pull, oh, we had, we worried about safety because terrorism. You can't just pull that out of your backside. And I hope the people of Wigan are paying attention to this. This is where Nandy is the sitting MP. And that's just an absolutely ridiculous attempt at, well, it's not spin really. It's just outright lies and bullshit. She's trying to cover for Starmer. is what is happening here. But that is not what you should be focusing on. That's what you'd like people to be focusing on. The manufactured consent around something that didn't happen. Unbelievable. And, what's this horse called? Trevor Phillips, is it? Yeah, he doesn't look too impressed with that. He immediately put out a home and started referring to his notes. Let's just hear the rest of this brief clip.
Matters that people aren't pressured. But there's also a bigger point here, which is that people standing outside shouting and protesting and threatening us, I will never change my vote because my decision making because of what they do. Houses of Parliament can't.
Utter bollocks, utter bunkum, ridiculous hogwash, poppycock, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But what else do we ever get from Nandi? I can't, recall anything sensible that she said again. Just a pure Starmerite, which means that she's a Blairite, which means that she's a Thatcherite. And obviously supporting and aiding and abetting, it's probably more accurate to say this ongoing crisis, humanitarian crisis that we've got in Gaza. So, yeah, shame on her. I do hope she loses her seat at the next election. Really do. Yeah. Lisa Nandi. Unbelievable. Oxidus Magicus, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your comment in the chat as well. What are my thoughts on Phil Morehouse's take on the situation? I'm not too sure. I'm entirely up to speed with that. If this is in your next comment. Even if Starmer had nothing to do with it, it's still the Speaker changing the rules in favour of the Labour Party, which is at very least against impartiality, which the Speaker has to be. The fact that Starmer had a meeting with him beforehand just makes it worse. Completely, 100% agree. This shouldn't happen. This just really shouldn't happen at all in British Parliament. It's bad enough that we have a crappy first past the post system, which only Bulgaria use in Europe. That's the only other country that still uses the first past the post system. It's bad enough that it's this 17th century archaic system, but if what little, I should say, democracy exists within that inefficient and unfair system, for that to be ridden roughshod around just adds insult to injury, because we all know within first past the post, probably somewhere between 75 and 80% of votes actually get wasted. And I'm all for proportional representation, absolutely, 100%. I'm also behind citizens' assemblies, which I think is going to be, I think that's going to be coming into the public consciousness a lot more this year in 2024. I think we need we need a citizens' house. We definitely need to blow the cobwebs off of this old system. The current parties that we've got, Tory and Labour, are completely indistinguishable from one another. People don't really have a choice when they go into the ballot box, and it's ridiculous, and it's got to go, and it's been going on for far too long now. So can we please have a brand new 21st century politics? Please. Yeah, thanks a lot for your comments there, Oxidus. So just quickly, before we move on to a little bit about general election stuff, yeah, I want to try and lighten the mood there, because that succession of clips, I'm sure, has heightened everybody's mood. It's appalling when you see these kind of statements being made on TV. But we're going to have a bit of a comedy break here now. Someone you might have come across before, Ty Hickey, is an Irish comedian, and he's launching his own news station, it seems, tongue-in-cheek. Please do remember, if it isn't obvious to you all, which it will be, this is obviously a parody, of course, just in case anyone gets irate when they see it. But he's launching, as I said, his own news channel himself, which I'm sure will be rivaling the likes of Talk TV and GBB's anytime soon. So it's BBZ. Well, I know it should be BBZ, but spur the benefit of the doubt there. And let's see the debut broadcast from Ty Hickey. That's the Irish spelling TADHG, and Hickey with an E. If you want to check him out on Twitter, I do highly recommend him. He's a great comedian, and he's been really good on the issue of Israel-Palestine recently, especially. So, BBC News. Let's see how the launch went.
Welcome back to BBC News, and we return now to our main story of Gaza's immoral war on Israel. Some shocking new footage has just been submitted to us, and with me now to analyse these harrowing images is Piers Murray. Piers, tell us what we're looking at here. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Alan. These images just into us from Tel Aviv, and we should warn viewers that they are particularly harrowing. We begin on this gentleman who's just out for a little ice skate, as you do, Alan, in the middle of town. He's had to abandon that now because of the bloody war, and he's forced into having a little sit. The photojournalist bravely swoops around. This is our key couple, Alan. This lady, that's a brand new jacket from Zara. She's willing to risk that in an impromptu game of hide-and-go-seek with her partner. This gentleman in the background is so distressed, he's taking a piss on his wife, Alan. Not to be outdone, this blonde-haired lady enters the scene, and she is so distressed, she actually takes a little shit. You can just see her there. But look at love finding a way, Alan. The hide-and-go-seek couple, in the midst of it all, right, in the middle of a war zone, they have noticed a shooting star. Oh, and a powerful scene of Israeli resilience there. As we cut back to the gentleman, we can see that in spite of being in a war zone, he still has time to actually film his girlfriend, which is lovely. We swoop around, and the ice skating, he's furious now at this point because he's paid for the hour. He still hasn't got on the rink.
Sure.
We cut back to, look at this cutesy moment here, Alan, right? Herself goes peekaboo, right? He goes boo and frightens the bejesus out of her. You know, it's incredible. Like, this lady, she's in a war zone. It's harrowing stuff. You know what I mean? The human animals are out together, and yet she still finds time to do her yoga. Look at this. Downward facing dog, how are you? Wonderful stuff. This lady's a trooper, Alan, if ever I met one. She still also takes time to just make sure she's being filmed. Yes, you're on camera. And I just want to conclude, Alan, by saying we hear about Motaz. What I'd say there is Motaz Schmotaz. This is resilience. Yeah? This is finding a way. Yeah? This is the right side of history.
Sorry.
Yeah, great stuff. So yeah, that's Ty Hickey. If you want to check him out on Twitter, brilliant. We'll definitely keep you up to speed with the latest from BBC News there, and they launched their channel just recently, so we'll see how that goes. But he's a great comedian, like I said, and yeah, we're getting towards the end of the stream now, but just got a few more clips for you. Obviously, the ceasefire motion is going to be in a lot of people's minds when they go to the ballots this year. Still no word from Rishi Sunak about when we'll be having the general election, so that's in a big box with a question mark on it for now, but we do know it's going to be some point later in the year, and it's going to be a very pertinent thing in people's consciousness, especially mine, when going to vote at the next general election. And there is this no ceasefire, no vote campaign, which we mentioned on last week's live stream as well. Fantastic speeches outside Parliament there. Obviously, the protests have been ongoing in cities all across the UK. London, Manchester, Birmingham, we've seen them happen all over the place. And the attendance is still very, very high. And if anything, it's been increasing in a lot of areas. So we're going to hear from Eddie Dempsey, who's obviously with the RMT union, and he's going to just re-emphasise that his union especially backs an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, and obviously that's going to come into play when people go out to vote, whenever that's going to be. Hurry up, Fishy Rishi. We're waiting. We want to know when the election's going to be. So then I can bring all of you fantastic viewers, amazing coverage and analysis of the electioneering, as well as the actual voting night itself. When that does come around, by the way, I'm thinking about doing a live stream, especially just for that. So we'll keep you posted. Also, just quickly while we're on the subject, before I go to the clip of Eddie Dempsey, we've got the upcoming by-election, as we've mentioned, in Rochdale this coming Thursday. That's going to be pretty exciting. I was considering maybe doing a bit of a live stream over that. Let us know your thoughts if you're a regular viewer of ours in the chat, if you'd like to see that. Or if you're a new viewer, you're all very welcome here. Thanks a lot. As I said, we've been delighted recently to surpass 800 subscribers. So it's brilliant to have you all here with us on the channel. Let us know what you think, because obviously there's a lot of eyes on that by-election, so it might be worth doing a live stream for.
Issues, but Keir Starmer has just dropped the pledge to support the demand to recognise Palestine as a state. My MP is Emily Thornberry. I will not vote for Labour. I'm not going to vote for Labour. Emily Thornberry will not get my vote. She certainly won't get the vote of my partner. And I'll tell you what, if I did think about it, she'd probably have me out on the street. So she will not get a vote from anybody in this House. And I'm of a firm belief that no politician should get a vote from any trade unionist for as long as they're refusing to support an immediate ceasefire and the establishment of a Palestinian state. No ceasefire, no vote. That's the position that we've got to have. They need to understand, if they're not prepared to stand up for peace, then we're not going to stand up for them at the ballot box when the time comes to vote. It's got to be that simple.
Yeah, it is that simple. No ceasefire, no vote, and that needs to ring true throughout the country as well. Thanks a lot for your comment as well, Basil Phoenix. You're very welcome for the upload as well. The clip before Eddie there from Ty was really great stuff. Do check out some of his other clips as well. So Oxidus has also said Mick Lynch has endorsed Starmer. I did see briefly before I came on the stream that there were some endorsements happening. I wasn't sure who exactly Mick Lynch has been endorsing, but has he endorsed Starmer? Is that right? I'm not sure. I was sure that I'd heard that someone had endorsed Corbyn, who's obviously, as we said, standing as an independent in Islington. So was that Mick Lynch? Am I getting mixed up there? Like I said, I only had a little bit of time to check that out before I came on the live stream tonight. So whether anyone has said who they will or definitely won't back, please do let us know in the chat as well. But if that's true, that is disappointing if Mick Lynch has endorsed Starmer. In fact, now you mention it, yes, I did see something about that, and it was based around one of these, grown up, let's grow up conversations or something like that. So now you do mention it, yeah, I think I did hear about that. That would be disappointing after, obviously, Starmer's lack of support for the strikes recently, even threatening to deselect MPs if they went and joined picket lines. He's a firm anti-unionist at heart, I'm sure, Keir Starmer, and we've already seen the sort of preliminary signs of that even before he's got into government, which a lot of people are expecting him to do. So that would be disappointing. And remember, it's not just a case of getting the Tories out, it's getting the neoliberal right wing out. It doesn't matter what colour it is, whether it's blue or red or yellow or anything else. It's not just about getting the Tories out at the next election. We want to get a socialist in. That's how voting works. We should be able to vote positively. Again, even in the crappy system that we've got, we should be able to vote positively and not have to put up with all this tactical voting bollocks. We should have a socialist candidate, whether it's an independent or with the grassroots party. Everyone should be able to vote for a socialist candidate. It shouldn't just be a choice of right-wingers on the ballot. Absolutely not. Far from it. So it is appalling. Yeah, that we have such a lack of choice, and I'm sure that in a lot of seats, well, I do know that in a lot of seats, people will post pictures of all the candidates online. There won't be a single socialist. You'll have about 4 or 5 candidates, and they'll all be right wing, whether they with a party, whether they're one of the major parties, whether it's Reform or, you know, UKIP or whatever, and then an independent who may or may not be further to the right of some of the parties as well. So there's no choice. No wonder people feel disenfranchised. No wonder that people don't turn out to vote. We have such low turnouts, especially in the by-elections, you know, like we saw. The thing is with Labour, they're trying to be the wolf in sheep's clothing. They're trying to convince people that they're behind real social change, investment in infrastructure, when they're not. They're just Labour in name only. They're the Tories, you know, wearing face masks, and if they do get into government, the mask's going to be off. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be disappointed if Labour wins the next election. We'll see. But I just want to remind you, in this clip that we showed last week as well, that people are wise to it. We showed this clip from Yanis Varoufakis last week, where he points out how actually pretending that you're up for election because you want to represent the people, and then actually turning out to be a Tory, like Keir Starmer and his Labour Party, you know, like they'll be, is actually arguably worse than being a Tory. At least the Tories are what they are, and they wear it on the sleeves. You know what you're getting with the Tory. They don't pretend to be anything else. So let's just remind ourselves what Yanis Varoufakis said.
The Labour Party has never had this degree of authoritarianism in its midst. You know, even under Tony Blair, you know, there were people like Tony Benn and Jeremy Corbyn. They were never thrown out. There was this mayor in North England, I don't remember his name, who attended a screening of Ken Loach's fantastic movie.
Jamie Driscoll.
And he was still thrown out.
Yeah.
That's fascism. Rachel Reeves has adopted this magnificent toxic lie of austerity before moving to 11 Downing Street. Mm-hmm. So what is she going to do when she moves in there? I mean, my goodness, spare us of this Labour Party. I simply don't think there is much happening between his ears, except a burning ambition to move into 10 Downing Street.
Power.
I have seen nothing ever coming from him which can be imagined as empirical evidence.
It is just power for power's sake. You might recall recently a few people stood up when David Lammy was giving a speech, and you know, he was interrupted several times. Well done to those protesters as well, by the way. But what Lammy had to say afterwards was power, not protest. And that just goes to show that it's power for power's sake. The Labour Party was founded on protest, for God's sake. It was founded out of the unions and out of people fighting for the right via protest. To turn their back on protest just goes to show how badly rotten the Labour Party's become from within.
That there is any analytical thinking going on in his brain, in his mind. Many people say to me, "Come on, Yanis, but Labour will be better than the Tories." No, not necessarily. Keir Starmer has been complicit in the genocide in Gaza from day one to this very moment when we're chatting. So why would the Tory government be worse? And you know what? I prefer to have bastards in power who claim to be bastards representing the aristocracy than bastards in power who claim to be representing the working class.
Yeah, a quick shout out to Politics Joe, who were interviewing Yanis there. And he's exactly right. You know, You would rather have bastards who say that they're bastards rather than people who pretend that they're all right and turn out to be an absolute set of bastards. Couldn't put it more succinctly myself. Yeah. Basil Finnis reckons that they've probably got pictures of Lynch. Yeah, that that could be it. There's probably been a few backdoor dealings going on, like we saw with Lindsay Hoyle earlier. Who knows what's going on? I do remember from the bit that I saw just before I came on the stream that Lynch was just going around the, get the Tories out kind of line. But like we said, that's not good enough. That's just not enough. You need to know that you're getting a socialist in who will support the unions, because Keir Starmer isn't going to support the unions. He won't even call for a £15 an hour minimum wage. In fact, the last I heard, in terms of promises, the Tories were actually proposing increasing the minimum wage by more than Labour were. And how crazy is that? So that's just another example. He's absolutely right, Yanis. But the veil's already off, Well, we see them for what they are. We see them on my left eye. We just need to make sure that that message and that realisation, comes out into the public's consciousness. And Basil just points out he was only half joking there. And I guess, yeah, you never know what's going on. You never know what's happening. Tragic to see that people left with such a limited choice in the ballot box. And, that's why we all join together. That's why we've all got to come together in solidarity. We do need a fresh system. We need fresh parties. We need a fresh way of doing things, whether that's through proportional representation, could be citizens' assemblies, people's assemblies. We all remember when Starmer was doing his speech at conference and got covered in glitter by Yaz, and called for a citizen's house. That's absolutely what we need. Couldn't agree more, because look what we've got with this dusty old system. What we're going to do. Okay, so I think I'm going to bring things to close now. We've been going for like over 90 minutes. So thanks a lot once again for joining us. Just a quick reminder, if you'd like to support the channel while we're waiting for our YouTube partnership application to come through, please do visit our Buy Us a Coffee page. You can find a link in the description. Hit a thumbs up on the stream, and please do share some of our content around your social media and help to spread the word. Once again, thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks a lot for your comments in the chat as well. You've all been very cordial as always. What a great audience we've got here. Obviously I'm having to monitor the stream and the chat at the same time. I don't have any moderators at the moment, but yeah, once again, just thanks for keeping everything nice and polite. Thanks for your insightful comments as well. That's been amazing to see. I hope you'll join us again next week, same time, same place, Sunday at 7:30. That's when we'll be kicking off. It's a week's a long time in politics, so we'll see what's happened between now and then. Obviously we'll have had the result of that Rochdale by-election, but I would imagine I'll be doing a video on that probably in the early hours of Friday, so keep an eye out for that. We'll have some other stuff coming up between now and then as well, so please do check that out. Have yourselves a very good evening. Hope you enjoyed a drink and some snacks while you were with us tonight on the live stream, and we'll hope to see you next week. So I will leave you with the opening clip of Keith's Fondue Party just to see us out. So until next time, take care everyone, and we'll see you soon on My Left Eye.